Peace and love. This is Travis Sellers. I'm an emerging doctor in marriage and family therapy. Um, Wanted to be able to share my experience with you, and in hopes that maybe that I can help people. I can help those who are thinking about marriage or trying to figure out things out, navigating that dating space. And even if you are married, deep in the graces of marriage. And I say graces because it is a grace. And I just want to be able to share, and hopefully you can learn from my experiences as a student in that journey. Last time I talked about a little bit about how I started out, thinking I know everything. Not everything, but some of the things, and having preconceived ideas about what it's going to be. And, I found out very quickly that it's a lot for me to learn. And I know it sounds funny that you become a PhD student and then you think, hey man, I gotta learn a lot. And if I think it's almost embarrassing to even say, but that's the reality, that sometimes I think it's parallel to what people do when they come into a marriage, and they think that they know everything, but they miss important conversations. They miss uh, important areas where you have to collaborate on, to make it really a peaceful and loving place for both people, right? So so that's why I want to have this conversation, because I don't think that we have it often enough, and then when we do it in a way where it's not. I don't want to say it always has to be therapeutic in a way, because I do think that a conversation that we're having, you can get some understanding, you can get some knowledge, some exposure, some different exposure, because I think that even though people have the experience, they may not have the effective tools to get them to have better results. So let's take it for example as a athlete. Um, you may be playing basketball at the high school level, then you go to the college level. There's always moments where people are teaching you how to do certain things, certain strategies. Even when you go from a high school student, you're the best on the team. But then when you go to college, you may not be the best on the team. So it forces you to pivot into different aspects of your skill set. But you have a skill set because you have some knowledge base. But in relationships, you kind of go into it, a relationship. You have one at a teenager. You have several. Some may be good, some may be bad, and it's different for men and women. And then at the college level, if you go to college, if you're at that coming emerging adulthood, you have a different responsibility, a different flexibility, a different exposure, and you're exposed to many different things and different aspects that we hopefully we'll touch on. But one of the things that I came in is that you have to have some skills to really understand and go along the journey to really develop those skills, so that when you are in a serious relationship, that you'll be able to handle yourself with balanced thinking, as I talked about before. You can be balanced in your thinking, and you'll learn how to, um, not always just go and rush to whatever your desires are. So you delay gratification. Sometimes delaying that gratification is something that you're emotionally reactive to that really isn't helpful for you. But it's just that if you can delay that for a moment, maybe you can balance out a situation that is going to get to a point where it's not really helpful. So, one of the things I wanted to touch on this first, just as an experimentation of knowledge and things like that, and it's just playing with the knowledge base as I'm continue to read. Um, it's so much information, and the thing that I talked about last time is that when I was reading one of the books, I got into this imaginary discourse with the scholar of like just competing and wanted to challenge them on their issues. Um, and I didn't necessarily complete the book. So one of the skill sets that, you know, that you had to develop, and I know that someone wanted me to touch on this before anything else, was the listening skills. So I'm gonna relate this to listening skills. It may be pure reading, but it's just a listening skill that you have to develop. It's a way that you have to intake information. So I was in class and I was talking to we were, having a discussion with the professor. I was online, so having, discussion with the professor. And he was, just like last time I mentioned, he's, asking us about, some of the terminology. So it's like learning a new language, really, any discipline you do. So make no mistake, this is a new discipline, and people may not respect it as you should respect it, as it is a discipline. And scholars have been studying relationships and the systems of relationships for many, many years. And so I want you to know that this is a serious scholarship. So he's talking about the concepts for this, the information, this particular course of, I would say, family therapeutic approach, right? So he's going over, that the system of how they use the terminology. So he's asking again, like, well, what does this mean? What do you think about this thing? So immediately in my mind, anytime I'm learning a new concept, I mean, because that's what, we are therapeutic approaches, and having that background, you're thinking, how can I use the information to help people? And I think he can see and feel the class having a similar thought pattern as me. It's like, how can we use the information? So he's very gentle with it. The professor was really good. He said, in some way, it's not like a direct quote, but in some way he says, look, we are an emerging doctors. And so this is our first class, our first time learning, new information. It's like learning a different language. It's can be overwhelming with information that you got to get through so that you can complete assignments. So he said, really, the most important thing is this: we have to take the information to understand it before we quick to, like, yeah, let's go, let me, diagnose people and go out and solve the problems of the world. And so I think that's what happens when we are married, when it comes to listening, or when you're in relationships, when it comes to listening, because I think it's an important skill set that we have, because opposite of what the culture is, just like what I'm doing now, I'm just talking and I'm giving, and so I'm giving, but I'm not receiving. So one of the things that we get used to very easily is giving but not receiving. And one of the things that we have to do, like this, and as I'm actually getting deep with the information, I'm reading, I'm receiving, right? So I'm used to receiving, but automatically our brains, excuse me, because we're always given. When it's time to receive, our brain automatically goes into, all right, it's time for me to give. I got to give something. So now I'm looking for a challenge. Now as I'm reading, I'm not even looking to fully understand the person, just to see, even if I don't agree, I'm just listening. I'm taking in what they're saying. And at this particular time for me, um, if it wasn't because I was with dialogue and there's people that I can, really run information by and really check me on my thought pattern, I probably would still be on that stage. Or if it was a time when I was, falling back and reading because I was so stuck on that one, and I should have been reading other stuff, because that's a part of me now receiving. I had to focus on receiving now, and I think that's the thing that we miss when we're in relationships, that we are so stuck on or so used to giving information to people, we don't find a way to get better at receiving. So that's part of listening. So that, And then when you're listening, sometimes, even though I did disagree with this particular scholar, so even if I did disagree with this particular scholar, even though I'm receiving it, I should just receive the information just to understand his thought process, not to disagree with his process, but just to understand what his thought process was, how he came to that perspective, and what techniques that he used in terms of scholarship to present that particular outcome, right? So, or that particular idea or thought, like how did he get to that? Instead of me thinking like, oh, I need to start figuring out ways to, oh, that doesn't sound right, he should have did something different. So I'm already going into that. Why didn't he use this particular scholar? Why didn't he use this particular knowledge base? Why didn't he use this reference? Instead of doing all that, I should just be looking at the process, because he's already did it. He's already there. He's already beyond where I am. So, and not even putting it on levels like that, but when you're exchanging with your partner, that means that if it's a situation that comes up, even though you've been in a relationship for 2 years, you think you know a person, you've been with a person for 3 years, 20 years, you think you know a person, and you can try to predict what they're saying. But sometimes they may surprise you that even though they're saying the same thing that they said 20 years ago, or they've been saying the same thing, if you took the time to listen to the process, maybe you can hear something different underneath the content of what they're saying. You understand what I'm saying? So that means, like, I'm trying to think of a good example is like, if you're talking about this is one of the things that they mention that I learned is meta communication, is how you are as a couple or a partnership in a marriage, is how two people are discussing how they want to communicate. So that's the thing. Like, some people get into conversations and arguments about how they're communicating, meaning like, oh, you're yelling at me. Your famous thing is you're interrupting me, right? So one of the things that people get into is the interrupting me is because why? I'm ready to give. I'm not receiving. And especially, I've been with you. I know who you are. I'm not receiving from you because I already know what you're going to give me. So you already on that mode. So instead of, even though a person is expressing the same thing they've been saying to you, the same thing they've been saying to you, you already predict what they're going to say, but you don't have the patience and the kindness to just accept it. And then knowing that and trusting that if you just accept where they are and what they're giving you, maybe I can understand something different. Like if someone's saying that you're cutting me off, or instead of saying they're cutting me off, you hear underneath you're cutting me off is that I feel like they're feeling that you don't accept them as a person. Instead of more like cutting you off, it appears to them that they're hurt by you don't accept them for their flaws, or you don't accept them for whatever their trauma. I don't want to use trauma, but with their emotional hurts and their shortcomings, and they need help. And most people need help, and they need a partnership with other people to help them along their way. And we can get on. I'll explain that another time. But hopefully, I think I'm doing it. Hopefully, the listening part is just the basic thing is when your partner's talking and when you're having a difficulty, it may be some other things going on. I mean, it could be some underlining presenting problems that you can't see, that he can't see, or she can't see. But I think at that moment, I think if you kindly listen to another person and just, you can feel it in your gut where you're about to just explode. If you can just be like, all right, I'm just going to listen, and then try to hear what they're saying and just accept it. And wherever they are, say, so you're saying this, and just be there. and just don't try to disagree. It may even hurt a little bit, like, oh man, all right, so I'm always yelling. Okay. So you're saying I'm always yelling, and I yell at you and when we're arguing, and I cut you off because I'm yelling, right? And that's overwhelming for you. And you say that to the person, and they say, "Yeah, man, just like it's always," and just stay in the moment. Just stay in the moment, and once they finish, and if you disagree, you can just say, "You know what? I heard you say these things. Is it okay if I say if I say what's on my mind? If I can share what's on my mind?" And they be like, if they say, "Okay, yeah, you can go ahead. What you thinking?" Or if they say, "Yeah, you can go ahead," right? They go, and or if they say, "No, I just want you to hear me because you always have something to say." You just take it. Just take it and then say, "Okay, fine. When can I share what's on my mind, what my perspective?" And let them lead that way in that time, in that moment. Let them be there. And I think that's the first step to really listening, because sometimes what we need from one another when you're in relationships, we do need someone to listen to us and hear our full thought, even in the errors of it, even in the mistakes of it. We just want to be heard, and sometimes as people, many people don't get that, and I think in that exchange where you say, when am I going to get my time? That's why you leave it. You ask that question: is it okay for you to tell me when I can have my time? You put it on them. You put the responsibility on them to give you something, concrete. If it's like, all right, give me like 10 minutes after I finish, and you can go. If it's the next hour or tomorrow, you can go ahead. And then I'll listen to you. And then even if they don't understand, they listen to you. Like, yeah, the next time when I speak, you just got to listen to me just the way I'm doing to you, and then you can ask me when you can reply, right? And so you start that process, because I think that can start off, and you'll be surprised how soothing that can be for the next person. Um, and in relation to like studying, sometimes when you're going into class and you're starting classes, you really have to just go into the class to understand that you're learning new concepts, even if the same nomenclature, the same vocabulary, or familiar with the vocabulary. You're learning those concepts the way that these scholars have put together these texts and these written books and documents, right? So you have to go in, you have to be ready to read, meaning take in information, accept and receive information to be good, or to be able to get better at the next level, right? So the same thing with marriages. For you to take your relationship to the next level, you have to be able to receive, because we're already good at giving, right? And sometimes, I won't even say that sometimes we're good, but that can be another discussion we can have. And just the example that I gave you is how you become better at giving too, right? So, those are the things I wanted to address, because these are the most important things that I'm finding early on as a student, where I had a flaw in the way that I was going about my etiquette in being a student. So I now had to examine and then change my ways of receiving information, because I had a preconceived idea, which was, it's not bad, but now you got to pivot. And the same thing we do in sports. It's like you got a situation where you got a kid, you used to going right on somebody and dunking in their face, or you going right and you shooting a jump shot in their face. Now you got a kid who's forcing you to go left. Okay, I'm gonna go left. Or dang, I didn't, man, I fumbled because I still tried to force it the right way. And then every time I try to do something else, I got caught up and I had to pass the ball, or I wasn't effective. So these are the things you have to go in. As a good athlete, you already know that, I want to be able to go to the right and I want to be go to the left. I want to be able to not predict. I don't want to say predict because that's the wrong thing. I want to be anticipate that I may have to pivot to do what? Go in a different direction, but still have an effective movement, right? So that's the same thing we want to do in our relationships. Um, and so also I wanted to say how we can develop, if you are a person that is in a dating phase, or even if you're in the marriage phase, the way that you can develop listening skills better, and like you're training that mindset, is that what I do is what I was thinking about. What I do sometimes, I don't do it all the time, and I think I should do it more often. But when you're out with your special person, try to come up with some questions to ask, some conversational pieces that some people call it icebreakers and things like that. Those things sound like people say, "Oh man, that's so staged and everything." But if you look at like the dating phase, you're staging everything. You have a chance to say, "Hey, I want to take you on a date," right? You plan everything out. You stage everything out. We're going to go here. We're going to do this. I have to, you're staging everything. And if once you stop doing the staging, once you get married, then things get stale. You get into the cycle of just doing whatever. And you don't want to do that. So you always want to have a staging moment in your relationships. You can decide what works for the both of you. But so in the staging moment, you're going to look up, and I suggest that, what I did was I looked up 100. No, I didn't even look up 100. I just looked up questions you can ask on first dates, questions you can ask when you're married, questions. These are refreshers, and it's tons of scholars. I'm gonna call them scholars. Tons of scholars and people who offer to this field who have several questions. There's one person, I can't remember the name, but they had 100 questions that they go through, that they listed, that you can go through, you can select, and they have some are even so intricate where they have like a specific timing of it. Like if you're doing this, if you're doing that, if you are dating here, if you've been 10 years, they have all these questions you can ask. And you should do that. You should just go through, like if you go on a date night, just have it on your phone. Like you got so much stuff on your phone, have it on your phone where you can go on your phone and you can just like, all right, man, ask that question. So you ask that question organically. Even if they, even in the thing, the point is, even if your partner anticipates what the questions that you're going to have questions, then that can just be a thing. But what you're doing when you have those questions, let me go back. So once you have the questions, this is the training method. Once you have the question, what you're training is you're going to give and you're going to receive. So you're going to take the time of asking a question. Now you're going to receive. You're going to listen to the person and how they're responding to the question, because that's the fun part of it. And once you get used to doing it, and then you say, "Hey, so you're saying your like a dream trip is to go to Tokyo? I never knew that. Your dream trip is to go to Tokyo." And they're gonna go, "Oh yeah, for sure. Like I really want to go to Tokyo. I've been wanting to do this. Maybe we can start planning." Oh yeah, maybe. See, and that can be another level of conversation just from listening to someone else, and you be like, I really want to do that too." So that's why it's so important. But once you begin to have that pattern, you use that same communication pattern when there are difficulties, right? So you can go into another, phase where you say, "All right, so you're saying that you saw this man and he wants to go out on a date with you, and you were dealing with feelings of excitement, like you were back in high school and someone's accepting your beauty, and you were tempted to the fact that you wanted to engage with this man." Yeah, you see how I did that, and it hurts. It may be that's probably hurting here, but if you're having a conversation, we can talk about. So you can be like, "Yeah, really, I don't know, it just came out of nowhere." Um, I mean, I hear about it like in like stories before, or people talk about it, but I didn't think I would ever be there because I'm a type of person. Whatever that conversation can go, but then you can go into, "Oh man, what do you think we can do to spark that same feeling in you between us, right? How can we keep that energy going?" So that's another phase of listening, or it could be it's so many ways you can go in this way, and I just wanted to share those things. Um, and if you have any questions, give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. But the most important thing is to like and share and subscribe to the channel so that we can keep doing it. And really, it makes me feel better if I'm getting better feedback. And hopefully this is helping. And then you can share it, share it with people. And the next time, I don't know what I'm going to talk about next time, but join me. It's always going to be something good. I'm going to be talking about relationships and my journey and how it can help you along the way. So if you have any questions, again, respond in the comments. If someone wants to help me with video editing, I'm open to that, because I need help with that, because I'm a student and I'm working at the same time, so I need somebody to help me with that. So respond in the comments if you're interested in doing that, and helping this information get out to people. Okay, until next time, peace and love.